Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I'm sitting with the wonderful Christy E. O'Connor in front of her piece, which will be in the It Is Written show, which will run from September 7th through October 29th with a special preview during the Collingswood Art and Crafts Fair on August 19th and 20th. Christy, do you mind introducing us to your piece?
Yes, so this is called Get My Pretty Name Out of Your Mouth, inspired by a Billie Eilish lyric. And this is a mixed media painting that uses a lot of different elements, starting first and foremost with a photo transfer image of myself.
I was going to say, I was pretty sure it was you.
In performance as modern day Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, which if you see Christy's video on, she's got that je ne sais quoi, we talk a little bit about your love affair with Marie Antoinette and all of that. So, did you start as a photographer and then move to mixed media?
How did you know? Yes.
So, well, because I've been all over your website, and I was like, wow, because your work has a very like feminist like energy, like an exploration of. It seems to me like an exploration of what it is to be feminine in the modern world and the historical trappings of that and how that balance comes in. And so I saw that in a lot of your photographic work and I'm going to call it the Crone series and things like that. But these also touch on that. How did you make that transition from photography to this? How do you think about incorporating those two things together?
So the transition really came out of the general fact that I no longer really have access to a darkroom, and that is my main mode and passion for photography itself is doing what do they call it, analog photography, as opposed to digital photography.
Yeah. Analog, kids, look it up.
So, but I've actually been recently thinking about how I do want to maybe try and get back into photography more specifically, but I'm figuring that out.
Well, I mean, it's nice that the meeting of the worlds, like with your performance, in like with the Marie Antoinette things, and the way that you meld, we were talking about before we started recording about how you are inspired by Rococo, and I was saying how I love a Louis XVI like style, like anything. But it's nice because this holds a lot of different things that tell the story, both of what that experience is like, but also you, which we really liked, and of course it incorporates words, so it's perfect for It Is Written. How do you think about the subject matter? What drew you to kind of working in the medium, like this medium, specifically mixed media, and then also, how did you get started? How did you think to incorporate the more Rococo elements with your photographic work?
So the Rococo elements really come specific towards the Marie Antoinette body of work, that series, and basically. I'm sorry. You got so many questions at once.
I'm sorry. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm a little all over the place today. But how did you think of this idea? Like, how did you come to this exploration of femininity through, like, a historical and modern lens?
Oh, well, that for me, I feel like it's the female experience. I feel like even though we've come a little bit to, like, there's been some progress made with the female experience. If you really look back in it and dive deep, nothing's really changed in like a lot of structures and systems.
Well, it's like the same thing with, I was listening to a podcast that talked about, it was specifically talking about segregation and how one of the juxtapositions you can make from north to south is that in the South, Jim Crow was segregation by law, and up here in the Northeast, it's segregation de facto. It just exists in social structures, and I feel like that's true for women too. And so I think that that's a really interesting thing to explore because in a lot of ways, by law, we have expanded opportunity, but we still have these remnants of these codes that come from a more antiquated time that still exist now, despite all of the trappings of modernness and bright and bubbly, ebullient behavior.
And like a lot of my research comes from, that the more you dig deep and read, the social structures then, and I do a lot of research about social structures now, especially with like modern day heiresses and like women in higher power structures within the current modern day America. You can still see a lot of abuses being made and whatnot, and it really is just things that we don't speak about. Until years later it gets uncovered, oh, this person was actually really problematic, even though they were supposed to be a champion for for women's rights, and you're like, oh no, they were.
That's right, they were. Let's just pretend we didn't hear the other thing, but you can't, because as long as you don't talk about it, nothing changes.
Exactly.
So then my second question was, at what point did you start to transition? What was the impetus to change from mostly analog onto this? Like when you didn't have access to a darkroom anymore? What drew you to the mixed media?
Honestly, I really love putting different elements together, and I you might notice, I really love maximalism.
I love it.
I don't believe in editing.
That's why you and my mom get along.
And my personal opinion is more, and more is great.
So, and the materials that you pick out are so distinctive, and what you decide to make three-dimensional is, I love, what's so interesting about this is they would have done something like this on, especially during the Victorian ages, incorporating three-dimensional objects with like portraiture and like relic kind of things that they would do. And the glitter and just the choice of the things that you put together, the way the push and pull happens is so beautiful. You also have a very distinctive use of color. How do you come up with your palette?
Well, I'm inspired by kitsch.
Love it.
So, kitsch is typically very bright and vibrant colors, and this particular series, I want it to have that garish kind of, it's in your face, like pop culture kind of bubblegum flavor.
There's something almost like neon, like that feels bright, like a almost too much but beautiful neon sign. There's something about the maximalism of this that like really is energizing. So do you decide, which do you decide first, this, or they happen both at once?
For this particular series, I start with the image.
Okay.
So for a while, I was doing these photo shoots in character, and then I'd go through the photo shoot and then pick the images I thought would work best. And then based on the image, I would come up with the quote. And usually the quotes come from either contemporary pop songs or not so contemporary, I consider like 70s and 80s also contemporary.
I do too. And I'm a singer, so you have to trust me.
Or I might use a quote from famous quote someone might have said, or like something from a book or whatever. Or so then I come up with a quote that I think is fitting for the image, and then I also think of the color background that is going to go, and then comes the stenciling and whatnot. So these are like hand-cut stencils that I made and then stenciled on there too.
Yeah, and I also love about your backgrounds that they always have a gradation of color, which moves your eye nicely through the other elements that you're placing in the image. Do you paint directly onto, what do you do first? Do you do the painting, the mixed media, inside, like with the frame in mind, or do you pick the frame after?
Oh, well, this one, I picked the frame before I started.
And then you laid out the composition based on that.
Yeah.
So
the frame is very important to the work itself.
Yeah,
so.
and sometimes Christy even makes her own frames, which I think is really cool too. So I love your pieces. They are a perfect encapsulation of storytelling and writing in blurbs, which we live in a blurb society.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about it, but we do. And they're just vibrant, they're thoughtful, they're meaningful, and you should all come see them from now through October 29th at Powell Arts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.